So by now we've looked at a few different ways that we can link in various files. We've linked in Revit files, we've linked in CAD files. In many cases, we just chose the default positioning, center to center or origin to origin, and then if necessary, we move the file. In this movie, I'd like to talk about a feature called shared coordinates. Shared coordinates is a feature in Revit where we're able to manage the positioning of two linked files relative to one another. And the main benefit of doing this is once you've established the relationship between two files, it's going to work in both directions and it's going to be maintained throughout the course of the project. So in this case, like the file I have here on screen, which is called shared coordinates, I have a linked site file in this file. And what I want to be able to do is open up the site file and link in the building and have it come in the correct location without my having to repeat all of the manual move and rotate and align steps. So let's take a look at the process. So I'm going to select the linked file here on screen. And I'm just simply going to click on it anywhere, and you'll see that it highlights. And we're going to take a look over at the Properties palette. And you can see here's the name of the file right here. It's a linked Revit model. It's called Building Site. And we can optionally give it a name if we want. And down here, this is where we want to direct our attention. The shared site is currently set to not shared. So I'm going to click that button, and I want to actually share the coordinate system. So we have two ways we can do this. We can publish the coordinate system from the current file to the link, or we can acquire the coordinate system from the link file into the current file. Now, it's almost a 6 of one, half a dozen of the other kind of situation. So it really isn't terribly important which one I choose here. In my opinion, the site plan ought to be the one that does the publishing and acquiring. In other words, I want to assume that the site plan has the master coordinates, and I want to gain those coordinates from there. So in this case, since I'm in the building file, I want to acquire the coordinates from the site. So I'm going to choose that. But like I said, everything should still function the exact same way if I did publish. It's really a matter of preference, actually. Now down here, Revit can actually record this information that we're creating, right? We're creating a relationship between these two files. It has to record that information somewhere. And it's recording it in a saved position, and it's calling that simply internal. Now, if you're satisfied with that name internal, then all you have to do is click reconcile and you're done. I personally prefer to rename that position. I like to rename it to something a little bit more descriptive. So I'm going to click change right here. And you can see that internal is the current saved position or saved site, Revit calls it. And you could either duplicate it or rename it. If you want to preserve internal for any reason, choose duplicate, and maybe that's considered a little bit safer. Or if you're sure that you don't need internal, you can just simply rename it. For this example, I'm going to simply rename it, and I'm going to call this Building Site. And I'm just describing that location in the file. So that's the building site. And I'm going to click OK, and then click the reconcile button. And what we'll see right here is the shared site of this linked file is named Building Site. And to me, that's a little bit nicer and a little more descriptive than having that button say internal, which is what it would have said had I not done the rename step. But I just want to stress that the rename step really is optional. Okay, we're not done yet. The last step in the process here is to save the file. So I need to come up here and click Save. And when I do, it will say location position has changed. In the file called Building Site, the linked file, we have changed the position. Well, of course we did. We renamed internal and called it Building Site and changed its coordinates. So I have to save not only the current file, but I have to save the linked file as well. So I'm going to click on Save. And now we've established that relationship. Now, you may recall in the file where we set up a linked Revit file, I can't have both the site and the building open at the same time in the same session of Revit. So what I'm going to do here is go to the big R, the application menu, and I'm going to choose Close. And then my building site is listed right over here. I'm going to click on that and open that up as a recent file. Now, it should be there because we just saved it. If it's not there, you can just go to Open and browse to it, but it should be there. Notice that it does not have the building. Now, the building should fit right about here and be oriented to the sidewalks and the parking lot and so forth. I'm going to go to the 3D view and zoom in just a little bit, go to the Insert tab, click on Link Revit, select my shared coordinates file, and down here, instead of any of the other options that we've previously looked at, I'm going to choose by shared coordinates. When I do that, Revit knows exactly where to put the file. When I click open, it'll come in exactly the correct location. So that's one of the benefits of using the shared coordinate system. Once you set it up for a pair of files, it goes both directions. So it's a bidirectional link, and the files will know where they should go. So it's a pretty nice benefit. If we had additional buildings on the site, we could set them up the same way. And then even those other buildings would know about each other, and we could build an entire campus of buildings that were all linked together. So the shared coordinate feature is just a way of managing the insertion points and the coordinates. Actually, it's more than the insertion point. It's the X, the Y, the Z, the orientation. It's all of that. It's a way of managing that relationship between two files when they're linked together, and it maintains that relationship bidirectionally. So if you link one to the other, the relationship stays intact.